Before you book that flight to visit the grandkids overseas or plan your dream European holiday, there's critical information about passport rules in 2026 that could turn your travel dreams into a nightmare at the airport. Thousands of Australian seniors are being turned away at check-in counters every single month because they don't know about these new requirements, and it's costing them thousands of dollars in rebooking fees, canceled hotel reservations, and ruined travel plans. If you're over 60 and planning any international travel this year, the next few minutes could save you from becoming one of these statistics. What I'm about to share isn't optional, isn't negotiable, and could be the difference between boarding your flight or watching it leave without you. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm breaking down the essential passport rules and requirements that every Australian senior needs to understand before stepping foot in an airport in 2026. These aren't minor technical details that you can ignore. These are mandatory regulations enforced by airlines, immigration authorities, and border control agencies worldwide, and they're catching out travelers who've been flying internationally for decades without issues. I'm going to walk you through every critical requirement, explain why these rules exist, show you how to check your own passport, and give you a clear action plan so you can travel with confidence instead of anxiety. Let's start with the single most important rule that trips up more Australian seniors than anything else: the 6-month validity requirement. Here's what you absolutely must understand. Most countries around the world will not allow you to enter if your passport expires within 6 months of your planned departure date from that country. Read that again because it's crucial. It's not about when you arrive, it's about when you're leaving. Your passport must be valid for at least 6 months beyond your return date to Australia. This catches people off guard because, logically, you'd think as long as your passport is valid for the duration of your trip, you'd be fine. But that's not how international travel works anymore. Why does this rule exist? Countries implement the 6-month rule as a buffer for unexpected situations. If you get sick and need to extend your stay, if natural disasters disrupt travel schedules, if you miss flights due to delays, immigration authorities want assurance that your travel document remains valid throughout any reasonable extension of your trip. They don't want travelers becoming stranded with expired documents or having to navigate emergency passport renewals in foreign countries. For you as a traveler, this means checking your passport expiry date isn't enough. You need to count forward 6 months from your return date and make sure your passport remains valid beyond that point. Let me give you a concrete example that happens constantly. Say you're planning a trip to Thailand in March 2026 and you're returning to Australia in April 2026. You check your passport and see it expires in August 2026. You think you're fine because August is 4 months after your return. Wrong. Thailand requires 6 months validity from your departure date, which would be April 2026 plus 6 months, meaning your passport needs to be valid until at least October 2026. In this scenario, you'd be denied boarding at the Australian airport before you even leave. The airline won't let you on the plane because they know Thailand immigration will reject you on arrival, and airlines face massive fines for transporting passengers with inadequate documentation. Different countries have slightly different requirements, and this is where it gets complicated for seniors planning multi-country trips. Most of Europe, under the Schengen Agreement, requires 3 months validity beyond your departure date. The United Kingdom requires your passport to be valid for the entire duration of your stay. The United States requires only that your passport be valid for the duration of your stay if you're Australian, because Australia has a special agreement with America. Indonesia requires 6 months. Japan requires only that your passport be valid for the duration of your stay. If you're planning a trip that visits multiple countries, you need to check the most restrictive requirement among all your destinations and ensure your passport meets that standard. Here's where many Australian seniors make critical mistakes. They renew their passport close to expiry, thinking they're being efficient and avoiding waste. But if you're a frequent traveler or planning significant travel in coming years, Renewing early is actually the smarter choice. Australian passports are valid for 10 years for adults, and you can renew your passport up to 9 months before it expires without losing any validity time. The new passport's expiry date is calculated from your current passport's expiry, not from when you apply, so you don't sacrifice any time by renewing early. For seniors planning regular international travel to visit family or take holidays, renewing when your passport has around 12 months validity remaining gives you maximum flexibility and eliminates the risk of being caught out by the 6-month rule. The passport renewal process for Australian seniors has been streamlined significantly, but there are still important details you need to know. You can renew online through the Australian Passport Office website if you're renewing an adult passport that hasn't been cancelled, reported lost, or stolen, and hasn't been damaged. The online system walks you through each step, allows you to upload a digital photo, and processes applications faster than paper applications. Standard processing currently takes approximately 3 weeks, though this can extend during peak travel periods around Christmas and winter holidays. Priority processing is available for an additional fee if you need your passport urgently, which reduces the time frame to approximately 2 business days, but you must have legitimate urgent travel reasons. For passport photos, the requirements are strict, and many applications get delayed because photos don't meet specifications. Your photo must be taken within the last 6 months, showing a full front view of your face against a plain light-colored background. You cannot wear glasses in passport photos anymore unless you have a medical certificate stating you cannot remove them. You must have a neutral expression with your mouth closed, and your entire face must be visible with no hair covering your features. Many Australian seniors try to use photos taken at department stores or chemists, which is fine, but the photographer must follow current Australian passport photo guidelines exactly. Increasingly, people are using the online renewal system's photo verification tool, which checks your photo against requirements before you submit your application and can save weeks of delays. Here's something many seniors don't realize until it causes problems. Your passport must be in good physical condition to be accepted for international travel. Immigration officers worldwide can refuse entry if your passport shows significant wear and tear, water damage, torn pages, or damage to the photo page or biometric chip. I've seen travelers turned away because their passport spent time in a humid environment and pages were slightly warped, or because the corner of the laminated photo page was peeling. If your passport shows any damage, even if it hasn't expired and meets the 6-month rule, you should replace it before traveling. Airlines and immigration authorities have become increasingly strict about passport condition because damaged documents are easier to forge or alter. Another critical issue for Australian seniors involves name changes, particularly for women who married decades ago and have been using married names on passports ever since. If you've legally changed your name through marriage, divorce, or deed poll, your passport must reflect your current legal name, and you must be able to prove the name change with documentation. When renewing, if your name has changed since your last passport, you need to provide evidence such as marriage certificates, divorce decrees, or change of name certificates. This is also important for consistency across all travel documents. Your airline ticket name must exactly match your passport name. Not a nickname, not a shortened version, but exactly as printed in your passport. Mismatched names are a common reason seniors get stopped at check-in. For those planning travel to the United States specifically, there's an additional requirement beyond your passport. The electronic system for travel authorization, known as ESTA, must be completed before you travel. This is an online application that Australian tourists must submit before boarding flights to America. It costs $21, is valid for 2 years or until your passport expires, and must be approved before airlines will allow you to board. Many seniors don't know about ESTA until they arrive at the airport for their American holiday, and they're shocked to learn they cannot board their flight without it. The ESTA application takes about 20 minutes to complete online, and approval usually comes within minutes, though it's recommended to apply at least 72 hours before travel. Similarly, if you're traveling to Europe, while Australians currently don't need visas for short tourist visits, the European Travel Information and Authorization System called ETIAS is being implemented for travel starting in 2026. This is Europe's version of ESTA and will require Australians to obtain authorization before visiting Schengen countries. The system is expected to launch mid-2026, will cost approximately €7, and authorizations will be valid for 3 years. If you're planning European travel in the latter half of 2026 or beyond, factor ETS into your preparation. Let me address something that causes confusion and frustration for many Australian seniors. Emergency passport situations. If you're already overseas and your passport is lost, stolen, or damaged, you need to contact the nearest Australian embassy or consulate immediately. They can issue emergency passports that allow you to return to Australia, but these are temporary documents valid only for the journey home or to a location where you can obtain a full passport. Emergency passports are not accepted for ongoing travel to multiple destinations. If you lose your passport while on a cruise that visits multiple countries, for example, you may need to fly home from wherever you are rather than continuing the journey. This is why travel insurance that covers passport loss and associated costs is absolutely essential for senior travelers. Travel insurance deserves emphasis here because it relates directly to passport and travel document issues. Comprehensive travel insurance should cover not just medical emergencies, but also trip cancellations, delays, lost documents, and emergency travel. If you discover at the airport that your passport doesn't meet validity requirements and you must rebook flights and accommodation, good travel insurance can reimburse those costs. If your passport is stolen overseas and you incur expenses getting emergency documents and changing flights, insurance covers that. For Australian seniors, particularly those with pre-existing medical conditions, ensuring you have appropriate coverage is as important as having a valid passport. Here's a practical checklist for Australian seniors to follow before any international travel. First, check your passport expiry date right now. Second, count 6 months forward from your return date to Australia. Third, compare those dates. If your passport expires before that 6-month buffer ends, start the renewal process immediately. Fourth, physically inspect your passport for any damage, including watermarks, torn pages, or separation of the laminated photo page. Fifth, confirm that your name on your passport exactly matches your airline tickets. Sixth, research the specific entry requirements for every country you're visiting, including transit stops. Seventh, apply for STA if visiting the United States or ETIAS if visiting Europe after its implementation. Eighth, make photocopies of your passport photo page and store them separately from your passport. Ninth, consider storing digital copies securely in email or cloud storage. 10th, arrange comprehensive travel insurance before booking anything. Let me share why these rules have become stricter in recent years. Global security concerns, increased international travel volumes, and sophisticated document fraud have led countries to tighten entry requirements. Immigration authorities are dealing with enormous numbers of travelers daily and need clear, enforceable standards. The 6-month validity rule gives them certainty that travelers won't become immigration problems if unexpected situations arise. For seniors who remember when international travel was simpler and less regulated, these changes can feel unnecessarily bureaucratic, but they're now universal standards that cannot be ignored or negotiated. The financial impact of getting passport requirements wrong is substantial. If you're turned away at check-in because your passport doesn't meet requirements, you're looking at costs, including new flights potentially at much higher last-minute prices, rebooking accommodation, notifying travel companions and family, expedited passport renewal fees, and possible forfeiture of prepaid tours or activities. For a couple, this can easily exceed $5,000 to $10,000. Compare that to the cost of renewing your passport proactively, which is $346 for standard processing or $544 for priority processing. The math is obvious. For Australian seniors traveling regularly to visit children and grandchildren living overseas, maintaining passport validity should be a routine part of annual planning, just like renewing vehicle registration or organizing health checkups. Mark your calendar 9 to 12 months before your passport expires and start the renewal process then. This ensures you're never caught in situations where you need to travel urgently for family reasons but can't because your passport doesn't have sufficient validity. One final point that many Australian seniors overlook: when you receive your new passport, sign it immediately in the designated signature area. An unsigned passport is technically invalid and can cause problems at immigration checkpoints. Also, fill in the emergency contact information page with details of someone in Australia who can be reached if something happens to you while traveling. These seem like minor details, but they matter when you're dealing with bureaucratic processes at international borders. Thank you for watching and taking the time to understand these crucial passport requirements. These rules aren't designed to make travel difficult, but to protect travelers and maintain border security. If you found this information valuable, please hit that like button and subscribe, because I regularly share essential travel information specifically for Australian seniors. Share this video with friends who are planning international travel, because this information could save them from expensive mistakes. Leave a comment below if you have specific questions about passport rules or travel requirements, and I'll do my best to help. Safe travels, plan ahead, and enjoy your adventures knowing your documentation is absolutely in order. I'll see you in the next video.